Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. Yes, the boys are back again from our 1 week hiatus over the holidays. There wasn't much basketball happening besides the Diamond Head Classic that we will touch on later on in the show, but we are back again. It is the new year. It is conference play 2024. Here we are. Jim, Matt with me. I am Kai. Jim, how are you doing? How was your holiday break?
Oh, it was terrific. Kai got a little relaxation in, got some Happy New Year merriment done over this past weekend. Now ready to get back to the grind here. We were just discussing off air pre-show. There are 145 D1 versus D1 games on Saturday. So it is a kind of a slow-ish trickle this week. And then you are tossed into the 40-foot Marianas Trench deep end. I guess those are 40 feet. Mariana's Trench are different. There's a lot of games on Saturday. That's what I'm saying, Matt. And we're excited to talk about them and the games that we saw this past couple weeks.
Yeah, it was tough to see no big game, no ranked opponent matchups on the day after the college football playoff. I feel like we could have maybe, two. I'm not saying we have a central figure or czar doesn't exist to be nice, but doesn't. But like two coaches at football schools, like, hey, we cool to like maybe steal the spotlight, day after football. But hey, I digress, Kai. College basketball is coming. It's coming heavy, a little too heavy.
Yeah, that Saturday
Little too
slate.
heavy.
Pretty sure that's a record. I know we broke the record last year. I think we're breaking it again this season. Just absolutely wild. We don't need a schedule like this, but we are, I suppose. Okay, standard show today, fellas and audience. Roots Roundup, very short. We saw that, three-man thoughts and some game previews. And as a reminder, our review section has been moved to the end of the podcast to get into the show quicker, not bore you if you're not interested in that sort of thing. We have 1, 2, 3 new reviews, some good questions to go along, so please do stick around at the end of the show if you feel so inclined. A personal corner, and before I get there, subscribe on Twitter and Instagram, 3MW_CBB. Instagram, pretty barren, but we have some basketball trips coming up this season, February especially. And then also subscribe to the YouTube channel, Three Man Weave. I think you can just type that in, Three Man Weave YouTube. We should come up. Please subscribe there. We're trying to get this channel built up so we can come back with more best bet shows during the week, get sponsorship, all that good stuff. No word on that yet. We did get a tweet about it from somebody. No word on that yet. We're still in a holding pattern. So right now it's Podcast Wednesday, Best Bet Show Saturday for the time being. All right, that's house cleaning. Let's start the show, get into Roots Roundup.
Let's do it, Kai. Let's talk news and notes. That is our section here, Roots Roundup, around the world of college hoops. The key headline kind of sent ripples of shock. Well, fine. Is that more important than the key headline, Kai? I don't know. You tell me. But yeah, shout out to our sponsor, CBB Analytics.
Yes, the best 30,000-foot view in college basketball, cbbanalytics.com. You're familiar with KenPom. Well, this is like KenPom put into a pretty picture, a work of art. The different things you can do with the data, Matthew. Build charts and graphs and picturesque images that allows you to digest the statistics in college basketball in an easier way. Tons of D1 staffs are using this to scout opponents this season and beyond. It is a useful website for both sports bettors and for casual college basketball fans alike, or diehard college basketball fans that love to just dive into the numbers and really get into the nitty gritty. We do have a promo code for this site. It is WEAVE. That's a $40 off your subscription fee. I do believe there's a free trial that you can try out. CBB Analytics, it's well worth it. Yeah, Matt, just quick one word from you on cbbanalytics.com. Go.
I'll give you more than one. I'll give you a couple sentences, actually. And well done by Jim to lodge the sponsorship under the key headline. I think they actually should drive more traffic to CBB. So nice job by Jimbo and Kai there with the tag team. I was just looking, Kai, your boy Ben Leutgen's shot charts on CBB Analytics. So a tangible and real example of my daily usage of our fantastic sponsor. Back to you.
Fantastic. Jim, back to you.
Of course. Thanks, guys. Yeah, that would be UC Irvine's Ben Leutgen. Not everybody's a freak like you, Matt, and just knows your roster.
He's back. Yep, he's back.
Nice. Best team in the Big West? Question marks. Sure seems like it right now. All right. Big headline. like I said, sent some ripples throughout the sport. Terrence Shannon suspended indefinitely after a rape charge was filed in Lawrence, Kansas from a trip there for a football game back in September. Obviously has not played the last two games. We are going to focus on the on-court impact of this, assuming he is out for an extended period of time. We're not going to go with the litigation and whether they knew what his punishment should be. That's not really our bag as a podcast. We are more about the on-court aspect of college hoops. And on the court, Kai, Terrence Shannon is really important. One of the best transition players in the country, plus 13 net rating per our friends at CBB Analytics. Just an incredible downhill player that opens things up for the rest of the team. Now, Northwestern got blown out by this Illinois team without them. Illinois looked really, really good, but long term, this has got to affect your impact or your view of this Illinois team.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, still a good team. Beating Northwestern by 30 is pretty crazy without Shannon. Marcus Domask is awesome. He had a hell of a game. Obviously, still a very, very, very good team, dangerous team. They're in the top 10 of KenPom right now. In fact, I think they covered against Fairleigh Dickinson too. So this is 2-0 against the spread without Shannon. Impressive start. I do think it's going to catch up with them a little bit. It certainly limits their ceiling. He's an All-American. Was certainly playing as such to start the year. Matt, doesn't sound like, don't want to speculate. It doesn't sound like he's going to be back anytime soon. Obviously, I'm probably going to stay away on Illinois bets for the foreseeable future, and it just sucks for Illinois as a whole. Purdue, easier path now, I guess, to the Big Ten title.
Jim, they'll be fine. Do you see what Justin Harmon and your boy Quincy Guerrier has been doing the last few weeks? This could be a mirage. We'll see how it ages throughout Big Ten play. Certainly, those are the dudes who can make shots. I think that translates in the tournament, right? Kind of trying to buck the Big Ten DNA bugaboo. So without Shannon, if those guys, those transfers, Harmon and Guerrier specifically, are going to just be home run hits, they're going to be fine. They're super long. They defend, and they're well coached. So, no big deal. That's my take.
No big
deal. All
deal.
right, Matt. With Terrence Shannon, they're a top blank team. Without him, they're a top blank team. Fill in those two blanks.
7/15.
Okay. All right. I sort of buy that. So I would argue that doesn't make them just fine. If they drop off from
fine 7-12,
not really a Final Four contender anymore. I'm going to say I don't fully buy the Guerrier and Harmon stuff from that they've had the past couple of games, especially Harmon. That's like the role players typically play better at home. Both of these games that they've played without Shannon have been at the comforts of home. We'll see on Friday. They go to Purdue. That is a real test of the version with no Shannon. They're still big, versatile, and can give Purdue some issues, but Edey's still going to be a beast in the paint against them. They don't have as many wing options now without Shannon. So that's the real test, Matt. We'll find out. Do they look like a top 12 team on the road in West Lafayette without Shannon? Kai, can they win a national title without Terrence Shannon?
Nope, absolutely not.
Can they win a Big Ten title without Terrence Shannon?
I don't think so either.
Yeah, okay. Jim, I feel like that's the cutoff. I think they can make a deep run in March still, but they were real title for me with Shannon.
Can they win a Big Ten? Do you think they can win a Big Ten?
Yes, they can win a Big Ten title. I don't think they win a national title.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Matt still loves his Illini. He's beating the drum for him. Hey, they scored 1.43 points per possession against Northwestern. That is a resounding, we're going to be just fine without him. But that's it. That's the key headline. We'll touch on Shannon a little bit more probably as we get into our 3-minute thoughts, but that's just one you got to discuss. When an All-American essentially leaves the sport, that's bad news. In the recruiting world, we got some names to tip a cap to over the last couple of weeks here. Alabama and Washington each secured top 20 5-star players. Small forward Darian Reed headed to the Tide. Nate Oates just continues to reel in talent. I think it's like the 4th 5-star in the last 3 years that he's gotten to go with last year's mega stud, whose name is escaping me right now. Help me. Brandon Miller. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Got him. And then Zoom Diallo, terrifically named, headed to Washington. Up there, the Huskies. Mr. Hopkins actually figured out offense this year, and perhaps that's helping him reel in recruits as well. Also, shout out to Kentucky and Georgia Tech. Got 4 stars. Billy Richmond headed to Kentucky. Small forward Darian Dutton headed to Georgia Tech. Damon Stoudemire. We remain super high on the Yellow Jacket ceiling under Stoudemire there. Like I said, we mentioned Shannon, so we're not going to bring him back up in suspensions and dismissals. Not really any other random news and notes, Kai. A relatively
All right.
quick roundup because, hey, there wasn't much going on. People were home celebrating the holidays, so we've saw that.
We've saw that. And actually, before we do, I'll address this question in the chat because why not? We have a live chat section. This is what it's for. Chris in the chat says, can you discuss the emergence of St. John's and how strong the resume is? Yeah, I watched that St. John's game last night against Butler, was very impressed by them. Clearly, they are hitting their stride for maybe some early season, I would say struggles, but maybe just a slow start with the Michigan loss, right? Their resume right now, Jim, as the resident bracketologist here, I think it's pretty strong. You know, they could use more road wins, but they have a win at West Virginia. They have a neutral win over Utah that looks really good. I think they're in the tournament as of today, and I fully expect them to be at the end of the season.
Yeah, they just continue to get better. Like they started to figure things out a little bit defensively. They're mixing defenses the way Patino teams usually do. The man, the matchup zone. They're showing you different looks based on what the opponent is good at. And I think RJ Lewis is such a monster addition defensively. The bigger, rangy wing. He's so aggressive. He gets his hands in passing lanes, gets runouts going the other way. Things that Patino defenses typically thrive on. Yeah, Matt, I'm very much high on the Johnnies right now.
Yeah, they're just so deep. Like I think they can play the matchups on like every night. Guy's got the hot hand. You ride those. I mean, Patino's the best at isolating the mismatches offensively and defensively. He now has the depth that he needs to play the system and style he wants. Yeah, I'm in. I think I was selling Johnny's preseason. I picked up a few shares the last week, just a few.
Man, RJ Luis is good. He's gotten a lot better since UMass last season. Just watching him now versus then, it's like, wow, he's improved. Okay, we saw that. Here we go. Yeah, congratulations to Nevada for winning the Diamond Head Classic. We didn't discuss this due to our break over the holidays, but they were dominant. They beat Temple by 24. They beat TCU by 13. They beat Georgia Tech by 8. They've been one of the better ATS teams in the country. They are firmly in the field right now as of today. Mountain West as a whole looks great. Nevada, Matt, are you still a naysayer on the Wolfpack?
I was Mr. Nevada last year. I was Mr. Anti-Nevada this year. I'm still skeptical. I think they're going to fall below a few teams in the Mountain West. I think they're worse than the Aztecs. I think they're still worse than Colorado State. I think they're still worse than other team. Oh, New Mexico.
But is that more about how
That's
good
still
the
pretty,
rest of them are?
Yeah, you're right. Fair point. Fair point. So I guess Kai, better take is we should not forget how good Nevada has been if they don't look as good the next few months. And if they come back to appear in a tournament near you, don't take them lightly. Because Steve Alford's been like, I feel like his reputation as a coach is sort of dicey, but he's been really good the last few years. No question.
No, I'm taking them lightly after I bet on them against Arizona State in the first 4, and they were down by 40 immediately, just thrashed by Bobby Hurley in the first round. So I'm still maybe going to take them lightly in an NCAA tournament.
Can I ask why the skepticism? They beat Washington at Washington. They beat Weber by 17. They beat TCU on a neutral by double digits.
I have no good reason. Okay. I don't.
Like
Nick Davidson looks awesome.
Yeah, they're really good.
Blackshear's a stud. Yeah, it is a good team. I don't know why I'm doubting it so much.
Next team, a team that we did not doubt at all in the preseason, FAU, the Owls. You can't see it in the picture, but Matt's got the pennant hanging up over his left shoulder. They lost to Florida Gulf Coast, who has not been good this year. It was their second Q4 loss, which is frightening. Jim, they still have a really good resume, but still concerning, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the stat, and this might not be true anymore if Mississippi State's in the top 30 of the net, but they're the only top 30 net team with a Q4 loss, and they have 2, which is a really weird issue going on with them. And, you look at shot quality, and both of those Q4 losses were actual big wins. But Matt, are they a little more reliant on shooting this year? Is that why there's more variance in the outcomes, which is weird because it's such a similar team to last year? But I didn't feel like last year's team was this prone to upsets and cold nights, and they need the hot shooting to beat Arizona, and then it vanishes against Gulf Coast. As the man that saw them in person down in Boca Raton, I guess we all saw them at the Final Four, but do you feel like this team is a little more erratic than last year, given some of these results?
Yeah, I think the depth, the early injuries, like Nick Boyd, they played him a ton last game, and he really hadn't played much at all before that. So I think there is a blessing and a curse to the whole depth thing. It can work against you if you can't really find a good rotation. you could tell Dusty was sort of all over the place with his lineups. Like I to the point where I was like, Dusty, why is this your five right now? But I still believe in this team long term. They will have volatile moments this year, but I think they're going to drop probably 4 games in conference at least. Maybe no more than 4. But like AC is good, and I think it's a team, Jim, to your point. They have lower lows than I think we thought, just because they don't always, their pecking order is kind of TBD on a nightly basis, which can, like I said, can go both ways.
Yeah, and it's not like true NBA caliber talent.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
they have to be locked in. They have to be engaged and playing well with each other. Down the stretch in that Gulf Coast game, it was a lot of like Nelly Davis was like, "It's my turn to take a sidestep three to tie the game."
Yeah,
It's like, what? That's some desperation stuff with a minute left. Why are you doing that? And then I thought the egregious thing was down three. They miss. Gulf Coast gets the ball with
Yep.
40 seconds on the game clock. It's like a 10-second shot clock differential. You have to foul and extend the game there. Your best case is you get the ball back with
Right.
9 seconds left, 10 seconds, 12 seconds, and you need a three, and they can foul, they can, do all those things. I think you have to extend the game there. If you're down one, it's a different story, but down three, if they score, it's over. So I that was egregious to me. I couldn't believe that they messed that up so badly.
Yeah. Like sorry, kind of final note on this. I'll say this. If I were to choose 2 mid-ish, lowish majors to play in a pool against the big boys and see who has the most wins out of like 20 opportunities, I bet Bryant and FGCU would be like 2 of my top picks. Like they've both been
Oh,
mostly bad this year, but like they both have a super high ceiling.
this is a
Like talent,
sugarcoat
good
FAU
coaches.
guys. This is
Yeah,
oh
right.
man.
So I mean, people are probably gonna roll their eyes at that take. That's fair. You know what? You're more than welcome to. You're probably
Can't
justified to do
disprove you.
so. I do firmly believe that they hit 2 perfectly placed mid-major landmines. You can't lose those games, right? Obviously, you got to win those games, but whatever.
But
That's
Brian
all I
was at
gotta say. I'm
home.
done. Right.
It's not a
That was more
landmine.
inexcusable. I agree. It's tough
No.
that the FGC was also Q4. I feel like that should be a Q3 loss, but whatever. Can't do
Yeah,
it.
Bryant
but
lost by 17 at Mississippi, 25 at Xavier. I guess they kind of competed with Rutgers, but Rutgers almost lost to Stonehill. Like, I don't know. Beat that team by 15. It's not
Yeah,
asking very much
I
at
agree.
all.
this is life of the
Hmm,
hunter, not the hunted anymore. They're not the plucky underdogs. They are the favorites
It's true.
now. Speaking of favorites, Alabama beat Liberty by 45 points on 66 possessions. Holy cow. It's also the second straight year they've just blown the doors off Liberty. So that is Liberty's kryptonite, Jim. Alabama.
Yeah, well, Alabama's whole thing is we're going to beat our bye game teams, and this isn't actually a bye game, Liberty, because it's a semi-neutral site, but they have 5 losses in their top 6 or top 7 at every predictive website.
Mhm.
And I know they played some really good teams close, but look, they lost to Ohio State by 11 on a neutral floor, Clemson by 8 at home, and we're not really in that game, or it was not like a coin flip. Clemson led like the whole second half. Lost by 13 to Arizona on a neutral, really got extended against late. But then competing Creighton, competing with Purdue. I don't know. Like Matt, does this team really have that high of a ceiling? I think this is kind of a we've fooled the numbers type of team at this point.
Yeah, I'm in the middle there. I agree mostly. I still think there is a not like last year gear or 2 years before that gear, but there's a gear right below that where this team can still make real noise. But there's kind of that missing defensive tear element that Oates' best teams have had. It's just crazy taking a step back here, fresh off the Alabama debacle in the playoff. How much Oates has raised this program's like year to year mean is just insane now. It's like, yeah, probably top 10 again. It's like, yeah, it looks kind of like, 2 mid-major guards and only 1 or 2 4 or 5-star freshmen. It's like, no, they're top 10 every year. That's sort of where this average is now. It's wild.
Yeah, from 2007 to 2019, they made the tournament twice and won 1 game, and now it's like, oh, are they actually top 10 or are they more top 20? Like that is such a
Yeah, right. That's the
remarkable
context of
upturn.
the conversation, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
And,
question.
and to Chris and
Yeah, go
in the
ahead.
chat, why is Alabama so high? And maybe Kai, this is what you're going to say. It'd be
Go for it.
Moorhead by 32, Indiana State by 22, South Alabama by 56, Mercer by 31, Eastern Kentucky by 44, Liberty by 45. This is what BYU has done. It's what Iowa State has done. Winning by 50 instead of 30 is hugely rewarded in these, and perhaps it should be curtailed a little bit. I don't buy that winning by 50 versus by 30 is that big of a difference, Kai.
No, I guess not. But I mean, if you're consistently blowing out teams, regardless competition, it's going to get and probably should be measured, right? It just shows top gear, right? At BYU, you mentioned doing the exact same thing, but beating Indiana State by 22 is
That's
no
the
joke.
one that's like, okay, that
Right?
was right. That was pretty damn impressive.
Oh, Avila didn't play. It was like
Yeah, my guy
9.5. Yeah.
True. And their defense clearly is what gets them, right? They have the best offense in the country, and I believe that. Their defense just isn't holding up to power competition right now, and that's kind of been their downfall. Tough schedule against power competition. All right, Notre Dame beat Virginia by 22 points after being
Where
life
did
and
that
death
come
with
from?
after being life and death with Marist. Super weird. This team lost by 20 to Citadel. This is actually kind of, Matt, what we thought Notre Dame was going to be heading into the year. It was a team that was going to be a pain in the butt to play against in the ACC, probably going to pull some crazy wins, but also lose to literally anybody in the country.
I had a half unit on this game, so nice job, Matt. Good for me. Yeah, I'm just not a Virginia guy. This team's not good. It's young. It defends well. I was enamored by the defensive individual pieces, but then I ignored the other side of the ball, and there's just nothing offensively that like gets me any excitement for now or long-term development. I just think this is a team that's going to have to win on one side, and that's going to be really, really dicey with a younger group, that has to execute late consistently on the road in the ACC. Not a vaunted ACC, but still, I think a deceptively solid ACC. It's deeper, I think, than most people give it credit for. I'm just out. I think this team is not at all going to contend for the title. So that's my Virginia sell.
I think they could get there with the defense. I think Tony Bennett's got to make a change offensively. This team can't play in the last 10 seconds of the shot clock. They're bad at it. Like the amount of like good shots they pass up because they're like, oh, I'm not supposed to shoot yet. We're a methodical team. You got to push more in transition. They're 10th in the country in turnover rate forced. Go get some easier baskets because you can't score in the half court. You don't have creators. Like Reese Beekman's a nice player, but he is not like a dynamic figure things out. Their offense isn't like a 1v1, run a ball screen for a guy and open up the floor. It's pretty bleak for them. It just seems like everybody is playing with training wheels and they're worried about going outside of their role, and that leads to crap shots in the final 5 seconds of the shot clock.
Andrew Rohde looks like a D3 player all of a sudden.
He looks like a roadier in the headlights. That's what I'm going to say a lot of the time offensively.
I mean, he was playing literally in D3 basketball 2 years ago, and now he's at Virginia.
No, he wasn't. He was a big recruit for.
He's a true freshman. He was like Wisconsin Mr. Basketball. Yeah,
but they're going to compete in the ACC, guys. Or Matt, they beat Florida. They beat A&M by 15. They don't make mistakes. They beat Syracuse by 22. They're going to compete in the ACC. They're just going to have nights like this where they can lose to Notre Dame, for instance.
Is Notre Dame back? Are the Irish back, Kai?
No, I think the exact same team.
Yeah,
Shrewsbury got their attention in Virginia back to back. Yeah.
He got their attention after the Citadel game where the press conference was like scorched earth. My guys don't try. I'm sending you to the portal if you don't work hard. Yeah. And hey, a bunch of young guys sort of figured it out.
They got right back to where they were before they lost to Citadel by 20 in KenPom. So just swinging back.
So Julian Roper, maybe not a huge production guy, but he needs to be on the floor.
Yes, he's incredibly important.
He's an adult on a team full of kids, basically, yeah.
Some bye-game losses. We always like to touch on this before we head to three-man thoughts. Michigan lost to McNeese State. McNeese is a beast. They are legit. They're like minus 10,000 to win the Southland in betting markets for good reason. Kicking myself, I didn't bet this game, annoyed. But McNeese, very, very good. Michigan, yikes, resume is not looking too good right now. They've lost a few games at home now to mid-majors.
Why is their defense so horrible? They have good defenders on this team. Like Olivier Kama is a good defender. Damari Burnett is a good defender. Terrace Reed's big, takes up space at the paint. Trey Jackson's a pretty solid defender, should be. Terrence Williams should be. They're just small at point guard, but they're abysmal defensively, and I don't really understand it.
I don't get it either. It's confusing. I wonder if the whole coaching musical chairs thing has just not really manifested in a cohesive plan and execution of said plan. Not to, I'll just, whatever, but I'm with you, Jim. The personnel, the talent's there to play really good defense, but it's nowhere near that right now.
Florida State lost to Lipscomb. Holy moly. And Lipscomb also was like nothing at the end of the game. 8 points in 10 minutes, Jim, is crazy. To win on the road at Florida State and without definitely their best player and maybe even their second best player in Darren Boyd. Craziness for Lipscomb. They are they look like the best team in the A-Sun right now. If you had to quiz me on who the best team is there.
Yeah, especially if they're able to reincorporate Ignacevic and Boyd, like you
Mhm.
mentioned. Florida State, I throw dirt on them. Like this team is dead and buried this year. They're not even as ravaged by injuries as in the past, but Cameron Fletcher was a big loss, and they don't really guard that well either. Matt, this team's got major issues. I saw Jordan Majeski tweet like it might be time for Hamilton to think about retirement, and
Mhm.
it's bad. I mean, I know he's lost some key assistants, notably our guy Dennis Gates, but this team is awful right now.
Yeah, I think this team will finish like, I don't know, 8-12, 7-13, 7-13 in the ACC, I'll say. And then they'll make a deep run / maybe win the ACC tournament. It'll be
I'll take that.
A big Lanny Hamilton swan song here. That's how I see this movie playing out, Kai. That's the Florida State story of 2024. Nothing until late mid-March, and then they reappear, and there's a whole Hamilton expose and how awesome he's been, and they still stink though.
It just sucks that that program was amazing. Hamilton got them in a really good spot. Now it's 3 straight years not even being a top 100 team, and injuries were a part of it for sure. But as Jim mentioned, now it's like, okay, you're not that hurt this season besides one guy. Lots of teams deal with this type of stuff, and it doesn't look good. This happened a couple, maybe a week and a half ago, right after we podcasted last time, but St. Mary's did lose to Missouri State. I don't know if that's a bye game, technically.
It was.
It was
they
a
paid
bye
him to
game.
be there. Yep.
I can't believe Missouri State won that game. I thought it was a horrible spot. They were missing Matthew Lee, their starting point guard, and St. Mary's, I think, is pretty good. So, weird result. That stuff happens. And then finally, Furman just lost to D2 Anderson. Now, huge caveats here. JP Pegues was out for this game, as was Marcus Foster, who's been out for a while. Those are by far their best 2 players. However, Jim, maybe we shouldn't make excuses for losing to a D2 team.
Yeah, that's like, okay, you beat them by 10 instead of 25,
Yep.
maybe. I don't know. Anderson shot the lights out. Furman couldn't shoot, but still a little bit concerning. And I don't know, where would you guys put the SoCon race right now? Like, is it Western Carolina's league? Is it UNC Greensboro? Is it a complete toss-up? Matt's probably going to go Samford, which I say would probably make sense. Where do you land, Kai?
Man, a healthy Furman, I still think it's Furman. A healthy Greensboro, I think I would choose second. And then, maybe Furman or Samford, which is what I kind of thought beginning of the year. I guess I go with that.
Matthew?
I think it's Samford.
Okay. They've had their own injury issues too. Jermaine Marshall was out for a little bit, so perhaps they are the class of the SoCon now.
Yeah.
I think they're, yeah.
All right. Good we saw that. Let's move on. 3-man thoughts time. But first, a message from Home Field Apparel. I'm wearing their hoodie. It's the best collegiate apparel in the game. They make great stuff. It's comfy. Hoodies, shirts, even some dad hats, which are dope. Some bomber jackets, which are dope. And they have so many schools now. They have over 100 D1, D2, D3 schools on their website. A variety of designs for every single school. Tons of awesome Mizzou gear, if that's your type of thing. Matt went to Indiana. These guys are Indiana affiliated, so there's tons of Hoosier gear out there. Hey, Jim's from the state of Wisconsin. Lots of Badger gear. Lots of gear for, most likely, the school that you went to or the school that you cheer for. If they don't have your school, you can just tweet at them. Homefield APPARL is their handle, and you can ask them. They will likely work to get your school on some shirts. Check them out at homefieldapparel.com. Use our promo code 3MW at checkout. Get 15% off. Wear them. Sport them. That is Homefield. Wear one for the team.
Boom. Who's first, Kai? Called out, Mr. Point Guard.
I choose Matthew Cox first. Unless he doesn't want it.
No, I'll take it.
Okay.
It's the best thought of the bunch, so it's probably lead off with put our best foot forward here. My thought, it's more of a story, Kai. It's called the DC Coaching Carousel Story. Oh, I was thinking about this over the weekend, but George Mason, Providence, Georgetown, did some changes of the guard, we'll say, this summer. George Mason, Tony Skinn takes over, former Maryland assistant of the DC area. Longtime legend in those neck of the woods. Replacing Kim English, who moves on to Providence, who was vacated by Chris Cooley. Sorry, Chris Cooley. I love saying Chris Cooley. Why do I love saying Chris? The tight end for the Washington Redskins.
Yeah.
The H-back tight end. Guy needs to be removed from my brain permanently. Ed Cooley to Georgetown. And it's funny, like all three of these teams are having programs, having kind of polarizing, fun years, and they're in an interesting place in their program life cycle, we'll call it, Kai. But I think they're all happy. Like, I think you step away from this, they're all in a better place today. After all of like the nonsense that transpired, George Mason's off to a dominant start. What, 11-2 right now? I think they're my 8-10 sleeper. They got real talent, young, old, they're deep. All the George Mason fan forums basically say, wow, we are a much more organized team on both sides of the ball than we were under Kim English.
What?
A narrative that was
Huh.
exaggerated by both of you. So I just want to, yeah, there's your nod
Weird.
to brilliance. I like that team. That's all I'm going to say. So Mason, I feel like if you're a Mason fan, okay, good. I like where I am better today. So Providence with Kimmy, I mean, what can we say poorly about him? Although other than their offense doesn't always look great and they haven't looked great away from home, but they are dominating the dunk, Jimbo. 2-0 start in the Big East, a very good Big East. And while the offense can look like it's stuck in the Stone Ages sometimes, like if you're a Providence fan, and I know a few Providence fans, they watch a Cooley ball for a decade or so. Like they don't care. They just want to win.
True.
And they're winning big at home. As a Providence fan, given all of the nonsense that transpired behind the scenes, you were, kicking Cooley on the way out the door. And if you're a Georgetown fan, I'll be honest, this year's kind of looked pretty awful I thought this would be more competitive. I see some lackluster effort at times out there. The freshmen have some hope and give me some inspiration, but overall, you're just happy that you don't have Patrick Ewing. And so whether or not you're in on Eddie Cooley long-term, my hot take is I'm actually not as big of a Cooley fan long-term. It doesn't matter. You don't have Pat Ewing anymore, so you're fine. So congrats to all three fan bases for being in a better place than you were at this time last year. Happy New Year. That's my thought.
Yeah, Providence fans are probably just thrilled that they're not feeling like their coach is going to quit on them in February, which I think was the big thing last year where did Cooley give up? Is that why they swooned late? And did he stop really caring about recruiting and start recruiting for Georgetown? I understand that. I respect that. And obviously, Kimmy has, if nothing else, Kai, obviously great defensive coach, and he has passion. He can reach out to fan base and connect with them. And that has clearly happened and has carried over from the Cooley era with how tough it is to play there. They conveniently got their first 3 Big East games at home to start the campaign. So likely starting 3-0. We'll see how they fare on the road. They've lost their only true road game. They're 1-1 on a neutral floor against teams that I would argue are definitely worse than them. So we'll see. We'll see how it lasts through more of a gauntlet in the non-conference schedule. But to Matt's point, they are definitely better off than where Cooley had almost mentally checked out.
Yeah, sorry, Kai. Real quick take on just to put a bow on this. I think Providence has a higher ceiling now with Kim English than they did with that Cooley.
The type of player he can bring in, I think he's a better recruiter.
I think I buy that.
Yeah, I think Kim's a great recruiter, and I do like his passion on the sidelines. There, I said something nice about Kim English. He's a great motivator and coach to watch, and he's obviously good with the fan base. But look, he's held serve at Providence. His team this year is exactly the same as Cooley was the last couple of years, and George Mason's better with Tony Skinn. I mean, I don't know. That's just something I always look at. It's like George Mason's roster was better last year, and yet they're performing so far better this season. Now, let's wait, because Kim English had an awesome non-con with George Mason also, and then he fell in A-10 play. So don't want to bury him quite yet there. And hey, I like Providence too. I think they're a really good team. I bet on them several times. I did again tonight. Hopefully that works out. But yeah, I think every school is in a better spot, Matthew. Good, well said.
Thank you.
Jim, let's go to you.
It's the continuation of the winners and losers, and we always get a little bit of this covered, and we saw that. But just want to make sure to call out teams that have looked really good lately or poorly, have not been playing well. Matt, I'm going to start with your Duke Blue Devils because they are surging a little bit. Took care of Baylor before the break. Now they got Tyrese Proctor back. They smoked Syracuse last night at home. I know you had said you're kind of out long-term on your Blue Devils and you're selling the shares a little bit. But you got a much better Mark Mitchell game. You got Proctor dishing, and Jared McCain is making everything.
McCain is awesome. He's so
Are you
good.
starting to? Yeah, I was going to say, are you starting to buy back in on the Blue Devils?
A little bit, yeah. I have, tail between my legs for sure. I still, the questions that weren't answered in matchups like Arizona and at times against Arkansas, like when you're playing the real top end dudes, older, physical, that can punch you in the mouth. I still think that matchup kryptonite will linger throughout the entire year. But absent of that, if you can dodge those matchups over a 6-game span in March, Kai, I'm kind of back in on the Duke ceiling that I thought was coming into the year because the freshmen are
Yeah.
all the way legit. Get Proctor going. Maybe he doesn't need to be 100% of what we thought, but because Flip's been probably even better than we thought, then I think that kind of recalibrates the calculus, right? Like we thought it'd be like, okay, we have this star performance coming from Proctor and Flip's just like the steady Eddie double guy. Like, no, Flip's the star. Proctor just needs to be one of the key cogs in a really, really good backcourt.
They rock. They're incredible. They've covered 5 in a row, and it hasn't really been that hard. But
Mark Mitchell playing better, but again, we'll see against better competition too.
they're 0-2 away from Cameron in true road games. So that's part of the equation.
Matt, worst Duke yips, Jack White in 2019
That one.
or Mark Mitchell right now?
No, Jack White was epic. That was absolutely it brought me to my knee. Mark Mitchell's putting up numbers right now, at least, Jim. But
No,
yeah,
just mean in terms of 3-point shooting. Like
he's
he
over
took
his
one in the
last 20.
corner yesterday. He
Hit the
like
backward
double
in.
clutches jump shot threes.
Yeah.
It's like a trebuchet coming out of his. I can't believe they say he like works on it a ton because it doesn't.
He's a
it's
career
bad.
75% free throw shooter. It makes no sense why it from 5 feet farther completely it's in shambles.
Yeah, don't shoot threes. You're good at a lot of other things. Just don't shoot threes. My next winner is staying in that little Tobacco Road area. North Carolina kind of had a similar trajectory to Duke. Beat Oklahoma before Christmas. Got an actual road win at Pitt, a team that swept them last year in the ACC. Kai, they're more fun to watch. They've got more cohesion to them. Harrison Ingram and Cormac Ryan have given them what they needed. How in are you on the Tar Heels, and have they taken over Duke as the ACC favorite?
I'm very in. I've surrendered. They're awesome. The roster is very, very good. They fit well together. We knew that was the case. We knew the roster was really good. The question was always Hubert Davis. To this point, he has not gotten in the way of their success. Obviously, they've lost some games to some really good competition, but in the games like OU, like Pitt, like Tennessee, like Arkansas, I mean, you have to tip your cap. They've been playing very well. Harrison Ingram, not last night, has been awesome this season, and Cormac Ryan has been a lot better than I expected.
Yep, Matt.
Yeah,
where do you land in between those two? Your
Yeah,
Blue
Ingram
Devils
is a
and
real
Heels.
we thought it was a big 2 coming into the year. I think it's a big 3 with Ingram. I mean, it's just like they have the point, the wing, the big. They can play off those 3 dudes. And Seth Trimble's like the most underrated role player right now in college basketball. He's been great from what I've seen. So
Yeah,
I'm terrified of this team. I think this, it's going to be Duke UNC will be fun. And I think for a while we're like, it'll be fun, but like these truly 2 national title contenders, I'm prepared to say both are very much in the conversation now.
Yeah, I know Stanford just beat Arizona, but I think the Harrison Ingram evolution is just an even further indictment on Jared Haas. I mean, like Zaire Williams has been better in the pros. Like it just, how has he never been able to win with the talent he's had there? It's a real problem. All right, my next winner, San Diego State, just for their win at Gonzaga. I mean, you could really put the whole Mountain West in here. I know New Mexico just lost to Colorado State. That's a zero-sum game once you get into league play. But Kai, they have a real chance at 6 bids.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just impressive to see like the coaches they've hired and how well they've been able to build rosters out there. Last year, I think we entered the tournament with the Mountain West skepticism because they kept losing in the first round, but then these Aztecs go to the national title game, and I think we can start to take the league a little bit more seriously now too.
Yeah, this league is awesome. Like Colorado State, San Diego State, Nevada, New Mexico are awesome teams. I think they're all top 40 right now in KenPom. Even Utah State is good. Someone asked if they're legit in the chat. Yes, I totally think they are. And then I keep standing for Boise. Boise is still a really good team too. It's a tough league. I hope they get a bunch of bids. Obviously, you mentioned the tournament success besides San Diego State has not been good in the past, but I don't think that's an indictment on the league. They're very, very good.
Yep. There's some Pac-12 winners and losers that are going to get covered in one of Kai's thoughts, so I'm not going to dwell on either of those teams. But Matt, I'm going to call Creighton a slight loser. They started 1-2 in the Big East. Losing at home to Villanova was rather concerning. Couldn't quite get it done at Marquette, a valiant effort. But I just wonder about the style. Defensively, they're last in the country in turnover rate, forced. They don't foul anybody. It just tells you how little physicality and aggression there is to their defense. They do a great job of forcing mid-range jumpers. Like their rim and 3 rate is elite per shot quality. But can this style really win against the top competition? That's my question.
Yeah, no, I think they're not hard to play against on offense, right? Like they can bait you into the shots they want you to take, but they're never like bothered or pressured or like hurried shots. Like, I'm not going to say, Houston's a tough bar, but like every shot that Houston takes, they make you take bad ones, and the ones they make you take, there's someone in your jockstrap essentially. So, yeah,
Like
I
even
do think,
Providence is tough to play against.
yeah, exactly.
Creighton's
Like they're
not.
all over you. Like there's no give at any point in the shot clock, and they have the speed athletes to do it. You look at that Creighton roster, and certainly that's the glaring weakness is, top end agility, if you will, Kai. Trey Alexander's been good from what I've seen. I kind of had higher hopes for him as like a more dynamite type of insertion to that offense. And
His splits
defensively, he's
are severe versus good and bad competition. His worst
okay,
games are
yeah.
against their best
And
foes.
that's probably why I watched him play against good teams, and he's just not quite risen like I thought he would. So yeah, I don't know. I still like Creighton a lot, Kai, but I've been a little bit let down. A little bit.
Yeah, I like them. They're just still no, they're really good. They're really good. I
They're a
don't
top 10 team. They're a
I don't
top 10
expect
team.
them to be
I'm
Final
not budging
Four.
from that.
Kansas Light with like the top four guys being like way better than everybody else, but that's kind of rude to Mason Miller, who's been incredible this season. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not scared of them, Jim, as I am Marquette and UConn, for instance.
Yep, and I don't think they can win different ways.
Yeah.
If their shots aren't going in, they cannot win, and you can't win 6 in a row, and maybe not even 4 in a row in March with that. So I picked them runner-up nationally preseason. I do not feel that way anymore. So unfortunately, lowering the Creighton ceiling. All right, Kai, that's it. We can go to your first thought.
Pac-12 musings. Let's dive into the Pac-12 here. A couple weird things happened this past week. First of all, Stanford put up 1.33 points per possession against Arizona in a blowout win, which is incredible and something I never expected to say heading into the year. Jim, Stanford shot pretty well from three.
Yeah, it's 16 for 25, 64% from beyond the arc. I mean, it felt like, okay, hot start. Eventually, Arizona's going to get back into it, but they never cooled off. It was never close in the second half. It wasn't like Arizona cut it to 2 or something like that. It was a comfortable Stanford win. And Matt, they've done this at Maples every once in a while. They've had like these big breakout games, but the consistency under Haas has always been the problem. I think I saw Will Warren tweet that they're like 5-2 against Arizona, against Tommy Lloyd under Haas, and then like 17-35 against the rest of the Pac-12 or something. It's something that extreme. So I'm not fooled by this. This was just an aberration to me.
I agree. I'm still higher on Stanford than both of you. I still remember a time
You
when this
didn't
team.
watch the end of the Arizona State game.
I did not, so I'm glad I didn't. If I guess if I want my bullish stock to come to fruition with Stanford, but the 2020 team was like really impressive to me, and I still feel like there's hints of that 2020 year in this team.
This team's
I don't know.
insanely talented. They have a really good roster, but the fact of the matter is that was their first quality win. They're 6-6. I mean, they're not even sniffing the tournament right now, which is crazy. And everyone knows that Hash should have been fired and they should have hired Madsen, but that's neither here nor there. In a similar vein, Oregon State put up 1.21 points per possession against USC and beat USC by 16. This is this might be the crazy result in my opinion. The Beavers just putting up this many points per possession and thumping the Trojans. The Trojans are not very good, Matthew. Indy Infield, are people finally seeing the light?
Yeah, it's just too young of a team and too thin in the backcourt. I think to succeed. And yeah, I think it's a tough recipe. And obviously Enfield done his best job. I'm not going to defend him like I have the last year and a half. I'm going to go back to the bashing him. I think he's just not done a great job with that roster. I will say, how about my Beavers, Jimbo? They had UCLA down 10, I think, first half, and then took USC to the woodshed. They'd won 5 in a row before, all bad teams. It's not a terrible Oregon State team. It's the best Tinkle's had there since the Elite Eight run, and I'm pretty excited to see them win like 6 or 7 random home games this year.
Yeah, he's on his usual life cycle. This is like the second or third year where they're starting the crescendo up. They're still not quite good, but they're competitive, and that's refreshing to see. After the last couple of years, they've been like largely non-competitive completely. This was more about USC to me, just the lack of effort, Kai, they've actually fallen outside the Enfield zone on the bottom end
Wow.
because the effort isn't really there. And I saw like one highlight of this game was like Bronny James had 19. It's like, yeah, the rest of the team rolled on over and didn't play any defense. I think we should focus on that instead of
That's fair.
the little highlights. Yeah, USC's got major problems. We might see no LA schools in the NCAA tournament with them and UCLA.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Wayne Tinkle, man. Hey, he has continuity. He's a good coach. He does well. Imagine him with talent.
They're good enough to win the Pac-12 tournament, to get hot and win that.
Oregon
this year.
State?
They haven't
Again?
been that good the last few years. I'm not saying they're going to make a run, because
No,
the
they're
Pac-12's
not.
really good
Like,
at the
they're
top.
not good enough to do that. They're not good.
They're good enough to win in a 3-game setting, I think.
Maybe.
I strongly disagree.
More Pac-12 musings here. Mountain teams, Colorado and Utah, they went 1-3 against the spread in the opening stanza here. So the mountain trip is notorious for being difficult in the Pac-12, right? Road teams usually at a severe disadvantage. Oftentimes you can find pretty good edges there, or at least you used to, from a gambling perspective. Didn't happen this time. Now all 4 games resulted in the home team winning, but again, 1-3 against the spread. Was it a weird situation, Matt, or is it just happenstance given certain injuries to Colorado, for instance, or is it that Washington's a lot better this season? They covered 2 of those games. Do you read into this early, or is it just wait a few more games, wait till more mountain trips, and it'll even out?
I think it's the Pac-12 after dark, as coined by Mr. Ken Pomeroy. You can't really explain much what happens in this conference, and that continued. Yeah, I'm with you. It was very weird, bizarre. I thought we'd see some more lopsided results there. But there's some changing waves in this league. Washington's different this year, right? I think that's very true. I think Colorado looks real this year. So yeah, I don't know. Just the calculus that we used to use to assess these teams is different this season, just fundamentally.
Washington started scorching hot against Utah, got up big in the first half. I was actually impressed Utah came back and won. That probably was part of the mountain edge, getting back in that. And Matt, I'm telling you, Davon Smith matters, man. 9 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. He's given them something they didn't have. Well, quickness, get in the lane, jitterbug, set things up for other people. Worcester's a very solid point guard. Davon Smith is more dynamic.
A couple quick ones. I'll talk more about this in my second thought, but Arizona State is now 2-0 in the Pac-12 with 2 road wins. And as pointed out in the chat, they've led for a total of 3-ish minutes in both those games. So I call it luck or variance or just Hurley closing out when it matters most. Arizona State is at the top of the league with 2 road wins. Crazy.
I couldn't believe that they came back in both of those.
Yep.
They were down double digits with like 5 minutes left in Stanford, and I think even 16 and early in the second half against Cal, and won both. A little bit of an indictment on the other 2, but maybe with Adam Miller, this team's got a little bit more offense now.
Arizona, as a whole, the league here is still the only team in KenPom in the top 25, which kind of speaks to, I guess, a several-year theme, or at least pockets of those years. The Pac-12 is just not that strong, top to bottom, and it's dissolving next year. Okay, we get it. Utah and Colorado, the only other 2 teams in the top 45 in this league, and then Oregon and Washington are the only other 2 besides that in the top 50. So Mountain West, I believe, has as many or maybe one more team in the top 50 than the Pac-12. I would, top to bottom, probably say it's a better league at this point. It's probably arguable. But man, Pac-12 not looking good. We can do an I told you so on Enfield in USC if we want, or we can wait to the end of the year. And then we mentioned before, Matt can do a victory lap on UCLA. They're clearly not very good, although they might be better by the end of the year.
I agree with that. I agree. The problem is it takes too long for you to get good in this day and age of college basketball. So that's why going young and going foreign is just a big risk. I think you have to supplement that with some older dudes who have played collegiate hoop, unless you're getting all 5 stars like Kentucky, which you're just not going to. At least they haven't been recently. Pac-12, final point here, similar to the ACC, I think better than people think in the middle to bottom. Like the Pac-12 doesn't really have true dead weight this season because Cal, I think, is competent. Oregon State, we talked about, is better. So like there really is no dead weight in this league, which there really has been the last few years.
Well said. Hey, keep the mic. Thought 2 for you.
Thought 2. I'm staying out west. I was kind of blanking on my Guys Part 7 update, talking about cool players in college basketball that you don't know about, which you should.
Jackson
really
Shelstad.
far off.
That's my
Jim, that's a great one. We should probably mention him. I'll give you a courtesy mic toss for how awesome he is. But I'll start with the opener Barrington Hargis, UC Riverside, the Fighting Mike McPeos out there in La La Land, or I guess close to La La Land. It's such a desolate, barren program. Like you turn on the TV and you watch UC Riverside play, there's never more than 5 people in the stands. They almost dissolved athletics 2 years ago because of lack of funding. It's a miracle that they're as competitive as they are, even in a, I would call it middle to low caliber, not middle caliber, Big West Conference. They're 6-8. They're not that great this year, but they're much better than I thought. And this guy is, I was trying to find a comparison. Like he's got like kind of the flat top feel with the most herky-jerky step-back game I've ever seen. I don't want to bring up dark memories for Jim because I know he was fading Mr. Barrington with UC Santa Barbara when he did one of those shot-making exposés. It's a very obvious freshman that will be getting all sorts of phone calls from West Coast schools, powers, any school really, but I think he's like the next best-kept secret of the freshman, like under-the-radar guys that will be at a power conference next year, probably getting paid and probably doing some cool things.
Oh, you think he'll leave after one?
I hope not. Stay with Mike.
And he hasn't been super efficient, and he takes a lot of really difficult shots. But yeah, he makes them. I tweeted a video of his like 3 straight baskets that were all 17-foot step back fade away and didn't even glance the rim. Like they were all complete nothing but the bottom of the net. So he's got real game. It could probably be a little bit streaky, but yeah, Matt, he was fun to watch and opened my eyes.
Jim, will Jackson Shellstat have a better career than Peyton Pritchard at Oregon?
Ooh, I bet he's not there all 4 years the way Pritchard was, but it's fun because, this is like he looked up to Pritchard. That was his idol. He wanted to be at Oregon because he's an Oregon high school prospect, and that's the guy he models his game after. He bombs away from deep. Matt, he's probably got the same little debate of whether he's a point guard or not. I know you guys had that debate with us about Pritchard. But he does control the floor and makes huge shots late in shot clock, late in games. Just feels like he steps up in big moments. I think he rocks, Kai. Absolutely. Loved him coming into the year, and I think he's exceeded even my own expectations for him.
He's like for sure a multi-year player, right, Jim? Like I don't think he doesn't
our dude Sam Vecini is saying he could be one and done.
No way. Man. He's so small. I can't believe
he is little.
He's saying he could be one and done.
Sam's always trying to snatch the fun guys out of college.
Yeah.
Mr. NBA draft.
Crazy. Yeah, he's like Shepherd. Like I want Shepherd to stay multiple years, but he's just been too awesome for Kentucky.
Yep.
Guys outside top 50 who you want to see more for multiple years in college, they just play too well, too fast. And it's like,
weren't they both top 50?
I thought they were both just outside top 50.
No, Shellstad was like top 30 even.
Yeah. Oh, he was? Okay. Oh.
But I think he would have been top 10 if he was 6'3", 190.
Right. He doesn't look like a top. Yeah.
Quick note on Shepherd. He will not shoot 56% from 3 this year. And so like people are marveling at the efficiency and the box score plus minus and stuff. Like it's going to drop when his shooting percentage regulates or normalizes. He rocks. I think he's almost more impressive defensively than offensively. Like
his hands are blown away.
Quick. Yep.
His hands are lightning quick. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Sorry. I didn't mean to dwell on that one. My second thought, Kai, is surprising top 50 teams. We've kind of hinted at him a little bit. Utah State is one from the Mountain West that has snuck in there, and they actually hold a win over one of the other 2 teams I'm going to discuss, San Francisco. But we'll start with Utah State because we talked Mountain West. I mean, it's become just like a Mountain West version of Danny Sprinkle's Montana State, including being led by a Montana State transfer and great Asabor in the paint. They just bludgeon teams at the rim. They're impossible to stop there. They get really good shots. They've got big-bodied guards that all pass the ball really well, a dominant post player. But we also saw that style not translate well in the NCAA tournament and against better competition, bigger teams, better athletes. Do you think that is an issue or a hurdle that they're going to run into in Mountain West play?
Man, I don't know. I'm pretty bought into this team, and I think they're a little bit bigger than that Montana State team, just a hair. You're splitting hairs, obviously, but yeah, there's nothing wrong. Danny Sprinkle is an incredible coach. They haven't beaten too many huge name teams yet, like no huge name teams. It's been all mid-majors for the most part. Not knocking them. They played good teams. We'll see how they do it against Colorado State and San Diego State and New Mexico, but I'm bought in as they're a very good team, very much an at-large caliber one.
Matt, are they the new – we looked at like when Murray State's coaches were just guys that get like Mick Cronin, Billy Kennedy, guys in a row consecutively kept getting hired at high major jobs. They've gone Craig Smith, Ryan Odom, Danny Sprinkle. Yep. I mean, that's 3 straight home runs from their administration.
Yeah, I think that's like the gold. Them and Xavier are like the gold standard of administration continuity hires. But
Well, it's kind of a
Travis Steele's a
steal.
horrible hire.
yeah, okay, fine. It never happened, right? Xavier fans can look past that. The state of Utah just knows basketball. I've said it before. Every coach that this state hires, Utah, Weber, like there's a lot of good Utah Valley, Mark Madsen. I mean, just a good state that knows ball.
Yep, would have to agree. So yeah, I think they're legit and probably a tournament team, but I do have some concerns as they step up in like the athleticism physicality class. We'll see how that goes. San Francisco, mentioned them. They have snuck into the top 40 on the strength of a truly elite defense. They're huge because of the presence of Mongolian Mike on the perimeter. So across the board, they're big. And then Jonathan Mopo, the transfer from Missouri State, is like one of the best 5 defensive players in the country. He blocks everything, he steals everything, he dominates the glass. Matt, how legit is San Francisco? Are they a threat to St. Mary's / Gonzaga at the top of the WCC?
I think they're really close, yeah, because they're just so deep. And I think there's actually more offensive upside with this team as they try and figure out how they're like. When I talked to Gurlifson in the offseason, he's like, yeah, we got these really cool dynamic hybrid wing guards, and Mongolian Mike's a unique player in and of itself. Like he's like, we kind of have to figure out how to build the offense to work with that. But the defense is always going to be awesome. He's like, we just got a bunch of long dudes, and we're going to throw them out there, take up floor space, and that's worked perfectly. I mean, if Mongolian Mike hits a new gear and they kind of figure out how to play him with Williams, um, this could be like not as good as Golden's tournament team, but I think this could be a top 40 team. I mean, I know they've beaten a bunch of fine teams by a lot. We talked about how that's inflating their metrics, but I kind of think there's some real upside with this team.
Yeah, I'm kind of selling. I don't know, their defense rocks. I think they're going to be very, very good. They have a solid floor. They don't have the offense to take it to the next gear, right? They beat Minnesota, impressive. Every other team they've played, they haven't been able to get over the hump in terms of teams in the top 100-ish. So they're a very good mid-major. I don't think they're a top 50 team.
Yeah, they're kind of miniature version of what we talked about with BYU and Alabama, where they're by game wins, like being Mississippi Valley State by 50 instead of 30,
Yep.
Fresno State by 20 instead of 10, like Northern Arizona by 40 instead of 30. Like I think they've artificially inflated their value a little bit, and I think they're closer to a top 60, 75 team, which is much better. I think coming into the year, I said they weren't a top 100 team, and I was wrong, dead wrong about that one. All right, the last one I want to mention here, because they just snuck in the top 50 last night, SMU. Pretty clearly the third best team in the American right now. Maybe you could debate North Texas as potentially being that team. Tulane has a great offense, but SMU's defense has been outrageous. They've got a bunch of versatile athletes up front in the 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" range, all transfers. Rob Lanier's built another great defense. He did this at Georgia State. And Chuck Harris, a guy we've been pretty skeptical of, is suddenly a fireball, an inferno from deep, given the offense enough production. Is SMU legit? That's my question.
I'm starting to come around, but I'm still holding out on SMU. They've done really nothing wrong. Even their losses are pretty solid. They covered at Wisconsin and they hung with Dayton, but still haven't really beaten anybody. I don't think Chuck Harris is going to shoot 43% from three the entire season. And I'm not really sold on Rob Lanier as a fantastic coach. I think he got pretty lucky with Georgia State. He had a lot of talent on that team and ended up kind of lucking into the tournament on the heels of Ron Hunter. So I don't know. Jury's still out there.
Yeah, I don't trust the offense, Matt. Where do you land with SMU?
Yeah, I think they've kind of hit their peak, but I think they're real to a point. Like I think the talent's actually underrated, and their pressure is like relentless. I mean, we forget they have Samuel Williamson. He was at Louisville for like 12 years. Like he gets every rebound. He's like a perfect. He's like glorified his like acceptance of just a role player and like just awesome at that. And when you have Phelps and it's funny. Butler defects have had a good year. Miles Tate at App State, Khalif Battle at Arkansas. So good year for Butler defecting guard. So maybe the Harris thing's real. Just getting out of the Butler shitstorm that was there for a couple of years is probably good.
Could be. I'm not quite to them being the third best team. I don't think they're top 50. It's a little like San Francisco, where I think they'll settle back around like 70th by the end of the year would be my guess. All right, Matthew, do you have a third thought? Or no, Kai, your second thought.
My second and last thought, surprising early conference standings. Obviously, we are a couple games into conference play across the board here, but still, some ones that are of note. Pac-12, we discussed it a bit, but Arizona State being 2-0 is wild. We talked about it on our show with Action Network yesterday. They're 100-1 to win the Pac-12, sitting at 2-0 with 2 road games. It's kind of wild that they're sitting there, and for good reason. They're not going to win the Pac-12, but still of note. And then USC is 0-2, and they've played Oregon State and help me out in the second one.
Shorthanded Oregon.
And shorthand Oregon. Not a great look for USC to start the year. Not what I expected. We'll say that.
Yeah, you can't drop that Oregon State game. That's really the questionable look. I mean, you could say it's surprising Arizona is 1-1, given that they were like 17-point favorite and a 13-point favorite or something. But I still feel comfortable with them. It's those LA schools for me that I think they have to be smashing the panic button. There's real concern. Enfield's always hidden behind his next recruiting class. Oh, we didn't hit expectations this year, but look who I have coming in. You have potentially a top 3 pick and you're not hitting expectations. You're not doing better than that recruiting wise. I wonder if they ever start to get impatient with him.
Stop going to USC. No, you should. It's an awesome environment around LA. It rocks. I get it. Okay, Big Ten. Kind of forget about this because these games happen like in November. But Michigan State is 0-2 in the Big Ten despite their recent surge. And then Iowa is 0-3. They are dead last right now at the basement. Honestly, it looked pretty good, Matt, for a little bit against Wisconsin yesterday, but panic ensuing for Iowa. I can't remember the last time Franz missed the tournament. I'll look it up while you say something about Iowa.
Man, I thought I would like this Iowa team relatively more. I really like their young freshman. I think I mentioned him on the earlier show. I saw Majeski give him love. Owen Freeman. But it's still, they don't have like that true interior enforcer bouncer in the middle that I think you need to win in the Big Ten. I think it's every year you kind of see some regression from Iowa in conference play. I think they win enough at home. They steal a few on the road. They've racked up a juicy enough non-con and they get in, right? That's kind of the recipe, and then they lose first round. That's kind of how the whole story goes. Rinse, wash, repeat. I think that same will follow this year. Although Jim, an 8-6.
They don't have the resume this year.
I mean, they really got to run up a pretty big.
They ain't making the tournament.
Nope.
I don't think they've got. I mean, if you filter Bartorvik for, I guess, taking out preseason priors and only versus top 150 teams, Iowa is 106th nationally. They're 1-6 in those games. Like they're where they're at in KenPom and stuff because of blowing teams out. They're another Alabama massive offense that buries those bad teams and doesn't really step up well, and they don't have the All-American star to anchor the offense like they've had the past few years. I think they're like bad. I think they go like 6-4, 7-13 in the Big Ten, I'll say.
2018 was the last time France missed the tournament, so it's been a while for Iowa there.
They got Rutgers, Nebraska, Minnesota, and then Purdue at home, Kai, on January 20th. If they win that game, we'll have a conversation, Iowa. Until that point, we're gonna discount you.
They should beat
Purdue will
Rutgers
score
and Nebraska.
100 points.
Probably, yeah. Missouri Valley. Bradley is 0-2, the top 3 team preseason for sure. And Northern Iowa is 0-2. Again, many people thought they could win the league. So a lot to happen still in the Valley, but surprising early results there. Indiana State looks like the hands-down favorite right now, with, of course, Drake always in the running. Whack. The wacky whack is being a little bit wacky. Utah Tech is 2-0 at the top of the league. Certainly, scheduling has something to do with this early start. But Abilene Christian is 0-2. Abilene, I think, is a very solid team. We've talked about actually in the past how them, Tarleton, SFA, it's basically the exact same team, just purple and forces steals and free throws. But a little bit of wackiness so far, Jim, in the whack.
Yeah, Abilene's the tough one to figure out. Arian Simmons missed their last game. We've seen over the years how mega vital he is when he's in there. But yeah, I expect them to trend up a little bit. A lot of the shot quality stuff I've seen recently is much kinder to them in terms of win-loss than the actual ledger for the Wildcats.
Matt's favorite conference, the Big West. Santa Barbara is 0-2 to start the year. They lost to UC Davis. They lost to UC Riverside. Not bad teams by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely teams they were favored to beat by a little bit and probably should have or expected to. It doesn't make much sense to me. They have the returning player of the year in the Big West. They have a top 50 recruit in Trior. They have good players, but strange at the early start. And then Matt, CSUN, Cal State Northridge is 2-0 with a win at Long Beach State. They're pretty much a wagon right now. Your thoughts on the Big West?
Mr. Andy Newman, just a lesson, a word of advice to all athletic departments out there. Quit trying to hire the retread dude who's been at 3 other has-been mid-major programs. Go get the guy who's won. Let's see, what's Newman's record when he was in D2? Like 91-30, I think, his last 2 seasons there.
That's look too many games.
90. No.
120 games in 2 seasons.
No, sorry, since 2018. Yeah, not since 2 seasons. That's
pretty good.
He won a lot of games. Like these dudes that come from D2 programs, especially like the good D2 programs, good D3 programs, they're probably pretty good at coaching. Like, go get that guy. Like, it's insane. Like, the hit rate is 80%.
Who's the one that everybody he comes up in so many? Ben McCollum, I think, at Northwest Missouri, Missouri Western. Yeah. I can't remember which one. Everybody says he's like brilliant, but he's kind of a jerk. So I don't know. I'm curious to see if he ends up getting the call. But yeah, like Matt Logie at Montana State's been pretty solid. Sprinkle before him. I think this is a very in the same way that D2 players were like a uncovered gems or a market inefficiency. I think D3 coaches,
especially at low and mid-major levels, I just don't think it's a no. And plus, you probably get a guy like Newman for cheaper than a guy who was expecting to make $500,000 at whatever he was coaching at 5 years. Just a no-brainer approach, folks. Just do that.
Except Kim Anderson.
What was I don't.
Well, that was too big a jump. You can't go to the SEC.
He won a D2 title at Central Missouri, and then he was the worst hire in history.
Too big of a jump. Needed a middle ground between.
I mean, how's Josh Schertz doing at Indiana State? Like, I just think there's
pretty good, pretty darn good.
A good blueprint there.
The Horizon League, Green Bay is 3-1. Holy moly, they beat Wright State, who is 1-2. Another shocking standing right now. Yeah, Green Bay. We thought they're gonna be better. These guys believed in them way more than I did at the start of the year. But to be like contending for a Horizon title is pretty incredible. Sundance Wicks, pretty good hire.
Yeah, I bet the under in both their first 2 games or their last 2, and they've gotten blown away because they're leading the conference by a lot in effective field goal percentage. They don't miss threes. They're number 1 in 2-point percentage. Noah Reynolds just gets them incredible shots, and I think some regression is lurking for the Phoenix. But I mean, like, compared to what they were last year, how badly Will Ryan had buried this program, heck of a job by Wicks.
Yeah, Matt talked to him. Didn't you talk to him this summer?
Sonny? No, I didn't get Sonny. No, I did not get Mr.
We end real quick on not surprising results. DePaul's 0-2, Georgetown's 0-3. All is right with the Big East in the power leagues. DePaul's terrible.
What was our DePaul versus Georgetown bet? I said Georgetown would be better.
I can't even remember which one I said would be better. I probably why did
DePaul.
I think either? Why did I think
I'm with Kai. I'm telling you what, this Georgetown team.
No, I don't think I would anymore. DePaul's terrible. Terrible.
Yeah, they are terrible. I think there's better days ahead for DePaul this year. I don't think there's any better days ahead this year for Georgetown. Like maybe next year the freshmen come back, but that team looks bad too.
Georgetown will get better.
Pulling up the board bets. I don't know if I forgot to put it in here or what, but I know we had one. I just don't have it listed. So
we'll have our intern go back and sift through the episodes. Okay, that does it for my 3-man thoughts. Matt, do you have any left, or should we go to Jim?
No, go to Jimbo.
No, this is mine's a quick one. This is a question from our guy Pete. Fun little theoretical. Who has more conference wins this year? Ole Miss, who is undefeated, but they're 79th in KenPom and projected 7-11 in the SEC, or Alcorn State, who is defeated by Division I, 0-12 against D1 foes, 313th in KenPom, projected 10-8 in the SWAC, which is a completely topsy-turvy, no idea how to gauge it because of all the schedules that they play. Who has more conference wins, Matthew, Ole Miss or Alcorn State? I stumped him. Really stumped him.
It's a great line.
Talk through your process. Give me some good radio, please.
I think Ole Miss will go 500 in the SEC. I think they're better than so KenPom has them at 7-11. I think they're going to go 500 in the SEC, and I think Alcorn probably goes 10-8. I'll give the slight edge to Alcorn.
It's Alcorn. It's Alcorn. Bussey's won 29 games in 2 years in that league.
Bussey's been great.
They're going to be top 3 again in that league.
Yeah.
Chris Beard's pretty good too, though. Chris Beard's not a bad coach either.
Yeah,
He is
The
talented this
conference
year.
is tough. Honestly, Alcorn, like I feel like they've rolled over a little bit late in their ridiculous bye game schedule, and they've had tons of guys in and out of the lineup. I'm going Alcorn as well, but I'm with Matt. I do think Ole Miss actually gets up more like 9 wins, not the 7-11 that Ken Palm projects them at.
I agree.
All right, Kai, that's it. That's all. That's all the thoughts for today. I have a UConn discussion, but I think I'm going to give it a week to see a little more sample size without Donovan Clingan.
I love it. All right, let's hit some game previews for this weekend and then the review section to end the podcast. 4 games I just chose, fellas. We can go through them really quick. Don't want to step on our toes too much for our Saturday show. But on Friday, the game of the day is Illinois at Purdue. Ken Palm's got this one at -8 in favor of the Boilermakers. It'll probably be higher without Terrence Shannon. We talked about Shannon at the beginning of the podcast. Matt, he didn't matter against Northwestern. They beat him by 30. You have to think he matters a little bit against Purdue. What do you think?
I don't think Underwood's beaten Purdue the last 2 years. He came close twice, I think, but he's a guy I trust on a game to game basis to scout and prepare. I think how do you defend Zach Edey? I still think Northwestern had the best approach with that, but it takes that type of personnel to execute. So Illinois doesn't have the true inside size, but they have tons of positional size. The Coleman Hawkins at Zach Edey chess match, Jim, is where this game's gonna be won. And Hawkins playing well is like a plus version of Illinois and can give issues to Purdue defensively. But Hawkins not making threes, Hawkins with 2 quick fouls. This whole game will tilt on its side quickly, I think.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Like if you can have Hawkins out there as a stretch 5 where Edey can't just sit in the paint and disrupt the mid post stuff, the Illinois booty ball that they do with Damask a lot of the time, then yeah, that's a problem. But like your best defender for Edey's Dane Danger, but I don't want him out there offensively because then Edey can camp in the paint and just take away the rim completely. It's a real kind of chicken or egg matchup thing there. I think ultimately Purdue's home court and Illinois coming back down to earth offensively, I would foresee a Purdue 10+ point win here, Kai. I think this is a big boiler W.
I tend to agree. They only played once last year. I think it was at Purdue, and it was a pretty close game actually. Illinois played them pretty close. I still think Illinois is very, very good without Shannon, as they proved, but I think Purdue's just another level right now. Who do they just dismantle? Maryland. I mean, not that Maryland's any good right now, but my gosh, like that wasn't even a game.
On the road, yeah, like a very tough environment, and just didn't have a chance. Like Illinois can have some success with that, like the bigger wings, because you know Braden Smith's small, Lance Jones is small, Fletcher Loyer is very slight, but if they're not able to pull Edey away, then it's just going to be too much mid-range stuff. So that's the big chess piece there, and as Matt pointed out.
All right, 3 games on Saturday: ACC, SEC, Big 12. North Carolina at Clemson. One of the battles for the ACC. Clemson has certainly inserted itself into the ACC contender conversation. They are likely to be a short favorite in this game. I think it's going to be an awesome game to watch. Matt, as the resident ACC historian, who do you got in this game? Offense. Yes. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a great game. I think Clemson wins this game. Just because I think UNC is prone to looking mortal, especially on the road, and Clemson has done nothing but impress me from start to finish the season. So, and a great home court. Little John, they'll be going nuts. PJ Hall versus Armando Bacot. If they're slotted, I don't know if that's how they're going to, probably some of the game for sure. Probably throw some doubles at Bacot. But Bacot, I'm telling you, he's been kind of in cruise control this year. I think it's sort of a decided, like LeBron load management. Like, I'll turn it on when I need to in big games or in March. So I don't know if we're going to get like a fully locked in Bacot game here, just sort of a 12-10 Bacot game, and RJ Davis makes every shot under the sun. I still think Clemson's got more dynamic, more offensive options. Shootout, I like them.
Yeah, the cruise control aspect might also have to do with, I think they don't feed him very often. Like, I think Hubert just kind of forgets he's got a monster in there, and they run some weird sets where Jalen Withers has the ball 15 feet from the basket, just backing down with no movement. They do that with Ingram too, and I actually think that's effective.
That works. That's good.
Yeah, it's doing it with Ingram's backup, not the right move. Obviously, Davis has been a complete fireball, so you don't want to take too many touches away from him. But yeah, it does feel like they haven't fed Bacot as much as they could, and if you can get PJ Hall in foul trouble, then this game could turn on its head. I wish I knew the outcome of the Clemson at Miami game before I really gauge this one.
Yeah.
If Clemson loses that, I probably will bet them in this one back home. But if they win that, I don't know. It might be a little tougher to handicap, Kai. So this one's a little bit of a toss up, waiting to see what happens tonight with Clemson Miami.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired of going against North Carolina, but I do feel like Clemson gets this one a little, John. Forgetting he has Baycott is a great descriptor for Davis. And again, he hasn't screwed anything up this year, but it does seem like they forget that they have a literal monster in the paint. He's so strong. Like, pound for pound, is he the strongest guy in college basketball? He's up there. It's ridiculous how he can.
He might have the most
people
powerful butt too.
Yes,
he's just thick.
Yeah, impossible to guard. I would love to have him post me up. I just want to see the strength. I want to see the strength. Put me in a body bag, Jim. Dunk on me.
Kai, I would pay a decently small sum of money to see that.
Get an elbow in the face.
I assume you both. Sorry, real quick. I assume you both would have Flip and PJ Hall above RJ Davis in your ACC Player of the Year.
Yeah, PJ Hall has been immense. Yes.
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
I would.
I think
it's no slight to Davis. I think all three of those are top 14, top 15, like third team All-American at least.
Yeah,
like,
right.
They're all top
exactly.
15 players.
Those are three All-Americans. I mean, there's three teams long. I agree.
Kentucky at Florida is where we're going next. Kentucky -1 per KenPom on the road. Florida, we are Todd Golden lovers on this podcast. Everyone knows this. Florida looking to get to the tournament. They have built a much better resume in the non-con this season. Big game for Kentucky as well, Jim, because they kind of need to stack some wins after not a terrific non-conference. They had some good games, but they didn't really score a lot of big wins. Your thoughts on this game?
Ooh, check the lights on the scoreboard. Make sure they're operational because both teams are going to find points in this one. I think Kentucky can spread out the size of Florida, stretch things out, and get shots up. Yeah, KenPom projects it for like 171 points. I could see it getting up even, both teams in the 90s kind of. I think they'll both want to run. Yes, Kentucky has a little more size now with Bradshaw and Onienso back in there, but Florida can still, I think, have real edges on the glass, even on both ends of the floor, get into the free throw line a little bit too. But the way Kentucky can spread you out and create some havoc a little bit defensively with Shepherd and get going in transition. I was watching the Louisville game and one of the announcers pointed out like how good they are at, as soon as they start looking up the floor, there's like shooter in the corner, whether it's Reeves or Shepherd or Dillingham. There's somebody waiting to get a shot up in the first 5 seconds. I think Florida might struggle to deal with that a little bit. So lean towards Florida, won't bet the side most likely. I hope the number on the total is not like 176 and I can maybe dabble in the over.
Yeah, I think Florida wins. The crowd intrigues me. Like, I think you're going to need like a wholly deluxe crowd here. Some of these over break home courts, like the Maryland game was like, this isn't a great, like, raucous environment. It was just a tough time to play Purdue if you're Maryland. But point being, Kentucky should bring out everyone from the woodworks. And I think that's going to matter here, especially against a young team that's not been super battle tested in hostile road environments, because apparently 10 people went to the Louisville, Kentucky game. But anyway, I think this side will,
and most
will
of them
crush.
are Kentucky fans.
Yeah, or whatever it was. But I think the size will bother UK on the glass. The question is, do you maybe send one less body to the glass if you're Todd Golden and you try and drop a guy back in transition just to sort of hedge your bets? You don't want to overcommit to the, so some fun chess match here between Todd and Johnny Cal. We'll see. I still think the experience and size of Florida, big home spot against a younger team. I think Florida wins that game.
I'm going Kentucky, guys. I think the speed's too much. The talent's too much. I think Kentucky overwhelms them. I hate to say it. I hope I'm wrong. Unless I bet
Kentucky's best in their biggest games. Like when those guys are so dialed in.
Yeah. Okay, last game before some reviews, and then we'll sign off. Iowa State at Oklahoma. The two plucky Big 12 teams that don't have a lot of talent on paper, or at least it sticks out. I mean, I know they have talent, guys. Relax. I love a lot of their players. But two teams that are definitely in play for the tournament. In fact, like very high seeds, especially Oklahoma with what they've managed to beat in the non-con. Thoughts on this one, Jim? Oklahoma -1 per KenPom at Norman.
Got to be able to take care of the ball against Iowa State, and that's kind of been a bugaboo for Oklahoma. They've got a mid-major point guard in Javion McCollum who doesn't have a ton of size. He's been solid, but not elite in that department. And then the rest of their guys, like Hughley, Moore, both coming from ACC squads that didn't win a ton while they were there on the floor. I think they can get a little bit sloppy with it. But I think Oklahoma's a little bit better. Iowa State's been not good when they played up in competition. I go back all the way to that Texas A&M game in Florida where A&M was down guys and they still couldn't hang on after building a 20-point lead early. So ultimately, I think Oklahoma wins this game. I think Iowa State does what it does a little bit with the great non-conference and then like 8-10 record in the Big 12. So I think Boomer Sooner gets a big home one to start off conference play, Matthew.
I agree. I think OU wins. I think I've been more impressed with them to date than I have Iowa State. And that's not just saying because Iowa State's beaten a lot of bad teams by a lot of points. I think they've both looked good in big games and moments, but more, I think I've seen OU play 2 or 3 times where I'm like, yeah, okay, that team's real.
Yep.
Tough. You're right. I like how it's the 2 plucky teams that most people probably aren't taking that seriously. I think the home team wins. That's simple.
Yeah, so do I. If this was at Iowa State, I'd probably say Iowa State. I think Oklahoma gets them here. Strength for strength. Both teams great on defense. Give me the Sooners. Give me the Sooners.
You got them. Here you go.
All right. Okay.
Yours.
Hey, 3 reviews to end the podcast, and then we'll send you on your merry way. Don't forget, Best Bet Show is on Saturday at 10 a.m. Fantastic slate. Obviously, it's like 145 games. Tune in. It'll probably be a long show. Here we go. Irby Seth says, great show. Enjoy the coverage of all Division I schools that we provide. Thank you. Do my Red Raiders, Texas Tech, still have a shot at the tournament this year with Cambridge out for the season? Jim.
Yes, I think so. Unfortunately, their resume is sort of barren right now. They've got a Michigan on a neutral win, and that's about it. But the offense has gotten a little bit of boost from McMillian and Walton playing more. And the defense hasn't taken that much of a hit. I think Warren Washington's like that good. Darian Williams, also a terrific wing defender. I think Texas Tech can get there. I still have a decent amount of faith in this team.
Yeah, Pop can shoot it. If he gets hot, kind of assumes the hero cape. I like that team still.
Agreed. Yeah, not as good as I thought they'd be preseason, but they're getting back. You're getting back to that point. Okay, Iron Making says college basketball's #1 podcast. I love it. He said he'd love to have the daily Best Bet show back. Yes, us too. He says a question to have the show start earlier on Saturday. By the time it starts, the numbers have already moved to a competitive disadvantage to listeners. Fair critique on the show start time. However, I'll push back on competitive disadvantage. We don't recommend games that have moved. We talk about the lines at the present time. We give you best bets with the lines at the current state. There's no competitive disadvantage there, Jim. Certainly, we say we liked games before they moved. That is true, but we hope we're being fair by talking about current lines in those games.
Yeah, I think that's more what he's getting at with the disadvantage is like, oh, you liked Syracuse -3 and now it's -5 and you don't like it anymore. That's a bummer for the listener because we weren't able to get on the -3.
Sure.
I mean, that's pretty difficult to do. No one's going to give out bets before they themselves bet them. That's a very important note and should never be expected out of anybody. And sometimes we're not getting bets in until the morning of, and you never know when it's going to move. So it would be nice to do it earlier, but we also have to think about our own betting and wagering and getting ourselves the best number as well. Unfortunately, I know it sounds selfish, but we'll continue to give the best we can at 10 a.m.
Yeah, it's for free. If we charged, I would bend the knee for the customer and viewers timing and all that stuff because it's a very fair point. I do sometimes have buyer's remorse. However, there's a lot. It's free, but beyond that, a lot of movement in the lines, I think, actually creates opportunities to bet later in the morning. So,
yeah, it could. Hey,
the college, the market's proven to not be super efficient the last few years. So I think it's actually even more reason to watch the show, and we can talk about dynamics, which have been, overbet into and buybacks and all that fun stuff. So I don't know, just my 2 cents.
One other point, in fairness to us, a lot of these games are moving the night before and the day before we even can bet it. And talking about how the game we liked the opener, we're not getting those numbers either. So
by 9 p.m. there's
mess.
like half the good bets that were there are just gone. Like, oh, well, there goes that half.
Okay, last review, Caleb O98, best CBB pod out there. Okay, here we go. He says, even if we're Duke, Indiana, Mizzou fans, we're still the best. Okay. His question is, what matchups should we Illini fans hope to avoid come tournament time, given the lack of good ball handlers, given how this issue even popped up against Mizzou when they blew out Jim and my Tigers. Jim, who should the Illinois avoid, assuming they make the tournament? They should.
If you see Houston, sprint the other way, run away. You do not want to see Houston get them away from you. I know you already lost to them once in the NCAA tournament, and it was a really tough draw considering how highly they were ranked in a 5-4 matchup. I hope you don't get stuck with them again because Underwood's had ridiculous draws year after year after year. Marquette, I think, is also a team you want to avoid. Of course, you already played them in Champaign and lost. Their perimeter pressure is a real issue. And then lower seeds, New Mexico, maybe with Donovan Dent and Jalen House ability to force turnovers. Oregon and San Francisco's length on defense and ability to pressure, I think, is somebody you want to avoid if they were to get into the tournament. Both those two are not definite entrants, but if it was like a 5-12 game, if Illinois dipped a little bit without Shannon seed-wise, I'd want to avoid those teams.
Or like a WAC school like Stephen F. Austin or Grand Canyon. Just absolute havoc out there.
Yeah, that's not fun.
In general, would you say that it's the team you trust the most, though, in the tournament? Let's put Purdue aside just for the sake of discussion. I know they're just like really, really good, but I still feel like Illinois is built to be the most adaptable team this year, even without Shannon. Yeah.
In the Big
Michigan
10,
State, Michigan State's obviously playing really awesome. Maybe it just turns out to be them, but I think right now Illinois is who I feel most.
I definitely trust Michigan State more.
I trust Michigan State more too. Yeah.
Yep.
Without Shannon, especially. Yes.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. I like Illinois, and I thought they were adaptable last year, and then they played my turn ball against Arkansas.
Yeah, right.
Took a quick exit. I mean, that was a tough matchup in terms of Ken Palm ranking again, like usual, but and this team is different. They're far less selfish, but it's still, I definitely trust Michigan State more. Have to.
Yeah, Illinois gotten screwed too playing Loyola. Yeah, tough.
Yes.
Yeah.
3 straight years, the team was way underseeded based on predictive rankings.
Tough.
All right. That does it for us. Again, thank you to those that listen on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button if you would on your way out. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, we thank you as well. Please subscribe there and leave us reviews. We'll see you on Saturday for our Best Bet show at 10 a.m. and then next week for another podcast Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central. Till then, be good. Enjoy all the basketball this weekend.